Hello guys, you're welcome to another tutorial on Sew with Abby channel. In today's video, we'll be trying to recreate Miss Vicky James' beautiful top. This top is easy to make and I use lycra fabric to recreate mine. If this is what you like to see, then keep watching. Let's get into the video. For this tutorial, here are the materials I'll be working with, and for my fabric I have lycra fabric here, which is 2 years because I'll be using the same fabric as the lining. I'll be drafting my pattern on this paper before I cut on my fabric. This is the front pattern and this is the back pattern. I added 1.5 inches to the back pattern as the zipper allowance. For the front pattern, it's quite longer than the back, and I'll be telling you why as we go into the video. The first thing I'll be doing is to draw a straight line, which is the starting or the shoulder line, and from there I'll take my vertical measurement. The first is the bust line, 9.5 inches, then the waistline, which is 16 inches, then the length of this top, which is 24 inches, plus extra 2 inches, which is still part of the length. Then I'll draw straight lines across. Next, I will label the lines. This is the bust line, the waistline, the length, and this is also the length, the full length. Now, I will take the neck measurements. The width is 3 inches, while the depth for the back is 1 inch. For the front neck, the shape is more like a sweetheart neckline. I'll come down by 4.5 inches for the neck depth. Go ahead and determine how deep you want your neck to be. And at this side, I'll mark 3.5 inches. I'll connect the point into a straight line, then draw my cuff. And here we have our neckline. And at this point, I'll blend the lines to avoid the sharpness. The next thing to do now is to take my shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus ½ inch stitching allowance. I marked 8 inches there, and from that mark I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. From the shoulder slope, I'll measure my armhole depth. To get that, divide your bust circumference by 6 and add 1.5 inches to what you get. Now this line is the chest line. Next thing to do is to get the armhole curve. Place your tape on the chest line and mark your bust circumference divided by 4. And on the armhole line, get the center and go in by ½ inch from the center. Then use your French curve of freehand to create your armhole curve. On the bust line, I'll measure my bust span measurement, which is also your nipple to nipple measurement. Mine is 3.5 inches. I'll mark it and mark the same thing on the waistline. And from that waistline, I'll come down by 5 inches. And on the 5 inches line, I'll retake my bust span measurement, then connect the 3 points into a straight line. Now, I want to measure my dart and I'll be using 1 inch measurement for it. On the waistline, I'll mark ½ inch on either side of the straight line, and from the bust line I'll come down by 1 inch, then connect my dart. The next thing to do is to take my round body measurement. I already measured my bust, and on the waistline I'll measure my waist circumference divided by 4. Then replace the 1 inch for the dart. And on the hem line, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4. Then connect the 3 points together. Alright guys, the next thing to do is to mark the hem extension. At this side, go up by ½ or 1 inch. For me, I'll use ½ inch. And at the center fold, I'll go down by 1.5 inches. Then connect the point. You can make the line curvy, it's all good. Now I want to draft the armhole for the back pattern. The armhole I drafted earlier is for the front. For the back armhole, we need not go in by ½ inch. I will extend the waist, bust and hem line to the back pattern. Then at the waistline, I will go in by 0.75 to eliminate the zipper bulge. And I'll be cutting this part off. The next thing to do is to work on the back length, but before then, I will cut out my pattern, and after cutting, I'll make necessary adjustments to each of the pattern. I'll cut the back armhole first. For the shoulder, I'll be cutting the back and the front shoulder separately because of the extension to the length at the front. So I'll bring in my tracing wheel and trace out the shoulder to the back pattern, cut it out, and afterwards I'll cut out the back neckline as well as the front neckline. I will also cut what I marked out at the zipper allowance side. Alright guys, I will separate each of the pattern to cut the front armhole. Now to the reason why I added to the upper length of the front pattern, I added to the length because of the twist at the neckline, which is the highlight of this top, and to achieve that you have to add extra inches to the neck length. So from the shoulder slope, I will measure 3.5 inches, which is the length I want to add, and if after making the twist there's excess of fabric, I will trim it off. I will label this pattern as front, and I almost forgot that there's an opening at the hem. So from the waistline, I will come down by 3.5 inches, and then at the hem I will measure ½ inch. When I open it up, I will have 1 inch for the opening. Then I will cut out the marked part. Now for the back pattern, I'll come down by 1 inch from the hem line and connect the point towards the side, then cut the excess out. Next thing to do is to mark the dart the same way I marked it on the front pattern. Now that I'm done drafting the front and back pattern, the next thing to do is to draft the sleeve. I will be drafting the sleeve pattern here, and the first thing I'll do is draw a straight line which will serve as the starting line, and from there I'll measure the length I want the sleeve to be, which is 23 inches. From the starting line, I'll come down by 4 inches, then create a curve back to the starting line. Next, I will measure my armhole and add 1 inch as stitching allowance. At the hem, I'll take my round wrist measurement divided by 2, then connect the point to the 4 inches mark. Now this sleeve is a little wide at the hem, so from where my wrist measurement stops, I'll mark 2.5 inches for the wideness, and from the hem of the sleeve I'll go up by 8 inches. Then I'll connect the point, and this is all for the drafting of the sleeve. I'll go ahead now to cut it out. And this is all for the drafting of the top. I'll go ahead now to place each of the pattern on my fabric and cut it out. I folded my fabric into 4 to cut out 2 sleeves, and I added half-inch stitching allowance here and 1 inch at the hem. For the front pattern, I added 0.75 at the hem as well as the side and half-inch at the shoulder. My fabric was on fold and I cut out 2 pieces. The second piece will serve as the lining, and I cut out the back pattern the same way. Now I want to start stitching. I'll be stitching the back panel first, and I'll start by stitching the darts. I'll transfer my darts to the main fabric as well as the lining, and this is how I'll be stitching it. I will head over to the sewing machine now to do that. After holding the darts, the next thing to do is to use lining to turn the hem as well as the neckline. I shortened the length of the lining by ½ inch, and this is how I will be stitching it. And after stitching the hem, I will also stitch the neckline. Next, I will use the lining to turn the side and the center back. After stitching the sides, I turned each piece right out. The next thing to do is to fix the zipper. This is my zipper, and this is how I'll be fixing it. Same way I shaped the zipper allowance while drafting. After fixing the zipper, the next thing to do is to work on the front pattern. The first thing I'll do is to shorten the length of the lining by ½ inch. Then I'll place the lining on my main fabric right side facing each other. Head over to the sewing machine to stitch the hem opening as well as the neck. After stitching the neckline, I will also stitch the 2 armholes. From the shoulder, I will stitch down to about 7 or 8 inches. After I was done stitching the neckline as well as the hem opening, I notched this part and the corners of the neckline before I turned it right out, and I also stitched the armholes just like I said. The next thing to do is to hold that. I will transfer the dart to my main fabric as well as the lining, and this is how I will stitch it. I used the lining to turn in the sides after I was done stitching the dart. The next thing to do is to make the twist. From the armhole, I will twist inward and I will twist it twice. After twisting, I will use pin to hold it down. And I will do the same to the other side. After making the twist, the next thing to do is to join the shoulder. I will place the back piece on the front, right side facing each other. I will make sure the ends of the armhole aligns, then pin it together. Afterwards, I will arrange the neck area and trim off the excess of the front neckline. Now, to join the shoulder, I will open up the lining and turn it to the back. Then I will stitch it together with ½ inch measurement. So guys, this is what the shoulder looks like after I was done stitching it. The next thing to do is to close the sides. I'll turn the fabric to the wrong side, head over to the sewing machine and stitch the side with the allowance I left for it while cutting. Now that I have closed the side, our top is almost ready. The next thing to do now is to work on the sleeve. I will set this aside and bring in my sleeve. The first thing to do is to fold in the down part by 1 inch. Then I'll use hemming gum to hold it down. I will also close the side with the allowance I left for it while cutting. The next thing to do now is to attach the sleeve to my top. Now, the sleeve wasn't entirely joined at the front of the top. There's a little opening. For the opening, I'll come down by 1 inch from the fold of the sleeve and measure the same 1 inch from the shoulder down to the armhole. From that 1 inch mark, I'll come down by 3 inches. that is where I want the opening to stop. Then I'll mark the same 3 inches on the sleeve. So when attaching the sleeve to the armhole, I will stop at that 1 inch mark, back stitch, and continue stitching after the 3 inches space. Now I will notch the marked part on the sleeve, as I will be using hemming gum to turn it in for a neat finishing. After stitching the sleeve to the armhole, I will also tack the button. After stitching the sleeves, I also attached the button, and this is the final look of our top. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you find this tutorial helpful. Kindly give this video a thumbs up, and if you are watching and you are yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly subscribe to this channel and turn on post notifications so that anytime I post new videos, you'll be notified. See you in my next one.